Woo! We're live. Well, at least that's what StreamYard is telling me. At least that's what StreamYard is telling me. StreamYard let me know that we're live. So now I got to wait for YouTube to let you know that I'm live, and then we can get this party started. And Lord, you look at that. Will you look at that? YouTube sending out the notifications on time today. Oh my goodness. Wow. I am shocked. I am amazed. All right. So we'll wait for a couple of y'all to populate the chat before we go ahead and start this episode of VypDrive. Should be a very good one. I've been trying to get this hammered down for a while, and we finally here. It's finally happening. But yeah, for those of y'all that are slowly filing in to the live stream, hopefully you are having yourselves a very good day. I am running on very little sleep, so once this is over, I'm going to take a nap or something. I need to sleep. Your boy was up late last night trying to get a video out before embargo ended, and I got it done. Though I got it done, so I got it done. But yeah, I don't know. Oh man, kind of a low turnout. Oh well. I mean, we got WL Wesley Jr. What's up, man? How you doing, man? Man, where are the people at today? Where are they at? Like maybe they're getting tired of me live streaming every day this week, I guess. Oh, we got okay. There we go. I'm about to say, where y'all at? Where y'all at? There we go. What's up, Joseph? How you doing, man? How you doing? Yeah, man. I got to get people when I can get them. So when they make themselves available, I got to jump on it. So that's what I've been doing. But you know what? My man's kind of busy. People can file in as they will. We're gonna go ahead and get this party started. So we go ahead and get this introduction in and bring my man in. So this is VypDrive episode 80, and this one I've been waiting for a very long time. We got the hardest working man in tech. The dude is a tech content creator, podcast host, Mr. Do Everything. Andru Edwards is here today on VypDrive episode 80, which starts now. What's up, people? This your boy Viper, the man about tech, and welcome back to another episode of VypDrive. This is the podcast about tech, hosted by the man about tech. And as I just told you all a few seconds ago, I got the hardest working man in tech, equally as hard to pin down for a guest appearance on a podcast, but he is here. Mr. Andru Edwards is in the building. What's up, bro? How you doing?
Episode 80. Episode 80 today.
80 today.
That's a milestone. 80. That's a milestone episode.
I know, right? Crazy. Woo!
Special episode for me to be on.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So thank you for joining me. No problem.
Sure.
You know I've been trying to get you on the podcast for a long time.
It has been a long time. I don't even know how long it's been, but
it's been long.
I mean, 80 episodes. It's been 80 episodes.
Yeah, it's been 80. No doubt. So normally for first time guests, I ask them how they got into YouTube, but I'm gonna wait for that because your story is very interesting, especially to me, because before you ever got into tech, if I'm getting it correct, you were a professional wrestler, right?
Yes, that was well before I started doing this. That was probably in between 1997, for the young people out there, 1997, the 1900s, through 1900. roughly the year 2000, like mid 2000.
All right, so since I am a wrestling fan, tell us how you got into wrestling, and more importantly, how did you transition from wrestling to tech?
The first question, how I got into it was, let me think, man, I was like 6 years old or something, just flipping channels and saw it on TV and was like, what is this? This is crazy. It was like Hulk Hogan and Mr. T or something, like, what is Mr. T doing in this guy's face? This is crazy. Because I would watch the A-Team back then. There was a show called the A-Team, and I was a fan of it as a child. And so the guy from the A-Team is like with Hulk Hogan. I'm just like intrigued, and so it kind of drew me in that way. And then eventually one day I was like, you know what, I'm going to do this too. I'm going to do this as a career. And I lived in New York City at the time, so it's not hard to get into pro wrestling if you're in the Northeast. It's everywhere. So went to wrestling school, trained. Did it for a few years before I decided to move across the country to Seattle, where I didn't realize because when you're in New York, you just assume, especially your whole life, no matter what you want or what you want to do, it's there. Like there's no concept of I need to go somewhere else to do something if you're in New York City. So
Right.
moving across the country, it just never occurred to me like, oh, this isn't a thing here in Seattle.
Mm.
There's no wrestling scene. It just didn't exist. So I was like, okay, I guess that's done. Um, Now fast forward to today, and Seattle's wrestling scene is incredible. But back then, it was like, I'm not gonna travel down to like Northern California and stuff to like wrestle on weekends. So I just stopped.
Okay.
The transition, though, there's not really a transition. It's so much as, I mean, I've been into consumer electronics in particular, probably since I was almost the same age as when I started watching wrestling. I'd say probably 8 years old, though, maybe a couple years later, where I was really into consumer electronics in particular and gadgets. And so I make that distinction because I think tech is, especially nowadays, tech is pretty much everything. Um, to say you're into tech can mean so many different things. So consumer electronics for me and gaming is where I got my start. And then when America Online started um,
Ooh.
in the mid '90s, I was all about computers because I wanted to figure out this whole internet thing. What is the internet? How can I be on a computer talking to other people? I mean, nowadays it's not a crazy concept at all. But back then, when you wanted to talk to someone who wasn't in the same room, you need to find a phone that was attached to a wall, pick it up, dial, and you are now tethered to the wall unless you had a cordless phone. You couldn't go too far. You can talk to one or maybe two people, and that was it. Three-way calling, and then you're done. So being able to talk to anyone on the planet using a computer in chat rooms and being able to communicate with email was such a novel concept that I think that was what initially drew me in, like fully into electronics, like the magic behind. It's not so much about the hardware as much as what this thing is allowing me to do is blowing my mind.
You are really aging us right now, so I can relate with you because me and you grew up in the same time, man. I remember
That's
the
right.
big fat phone book and the phone booth,
Oh my
and
God.
oh
Yep.
man, I mean, could you imagine today, given the current situation, somebody going into a phone booth?
Right. Or just picking up a phone, like you have to stick your finger in to like
Right,
pull your quarter out, and I was like,
right.
oh no, I don't know what's in there these days.
No,
I
no.
don't know what's in there.
Mm-mm.
Keep it.
All right, so we both know that today, right now, a big part of the way technology news is broadcasting and things like that is video. I remember you telling a
Yeah.
story about how you really hit the ground running and getting into video before anybody else. And I think you were talking about this is how you got to like maybe your first CES or something like that. So why don't you talk about how you what led you to really doing video and pretty much going from there to where you are now?
Yeah. So for me, I'd always been, not always actually. If I back up, I actually, as a child, had tremendous stage fright, shyness. I didn't even want to raise my hand in class, not because I
Mm.
didn't know the answer, but because I didn't want nobody to look at me, call on me, hear my voice. So there was that old version of me, and then as I grew up, when I went to high school um, in New York again, it's such a huge city that going from middle school to high school, I knew that there was going to be almost nobody that I knew going to the same high school as me, even though I'm in the same, like, it doesn't happen. Like, especially here, like you go to school with the same people from kindergarten through high school graduation. If you live in the same house the whole time. Over there in New York, it's so different. So I knew, here's my opportunity to kind of rebuild myself or come up with like a new um, basically I didn't want to go into adulthood as this super shy person, as someone who couldn't, who didn't want to have conversations and all that. So I was like, I need to make a conscious decision over the summer, graduate from middle school, going into high school. I need to have a whole new persona. I need to be outgoing. I need to be comfortable, because this is what's basically it was like this, what does a successful person look like? If you just think of personality traits, what does this person look like? Well, they're probably not someone who can't, go up to someone, shake their hand, start a conversation, like all that. So I was like, I basically taking all these building blocks and saying, this, I'm going to build myself into what I imagine success would look like. So going into high school, I started there, and then I did it successfully. But one of the main things was actually going back to the wrestling thing, as you know, but people who may not know, like one of the things about pro wrestling is it's live, whether it's live on TV or live in a building with an audience.
Yep.
So, and since it's not an actual sport or competition, if you take something like UFC or anything else, boxing, it doesn't matter what the people in the crowd think. I'm here to win. My purpose in this octagon or in this boxing ring is to beat my opponent, either for a championship or for more money than they get or whatever it might be. That's my goal, right? But in wrestling, that's not the goal at all. The goal is to entertain the people who are around you. And so the difference there is you can't mess up. If you have a microphone in your hand and you're speaking to an audience and you mess up, there's no, oh, you know what, I messed up. Could you reset? Can we do another take? I messed that. You cannot do that. So you have to learn, basically, no matter what I say or do, I meant to do that. So you have to learn how to roll with things very quickly. And that is one of the best experiences and lessons that I've learned in being someone who's on camera, is how to roll with a mistake, how not to make a mistake, how to be, kind of prepared when you're on camera and be natural. That was all thanks to my days as a wrestler. So transitioning away from that, I started a tech website, gearlive.com, where I would just put my opinions and my thoughts on the news of the day. Usually on a daily basis, I'd say I spend maybe like an hour or two after like coming home from work, just here's my website. Let me put my thoughts up. And it started growing very nicely, to the point where 9 months later, I was earning more from the website with an hour or two of time per day than I was from my full-time job. So I quit my job, went with the website full time, and then let me think. My website started the same month that Engadget started, so we both started the same time. Both of us were one person running it. Gizmodo had been around for maybe 8 months at that time. There were not a lot of tech sites. There was no Verge back then.
Right.
So, but fast forward to a year, and all of a sudden, major media companies are buying up tech sites. So Condé Nast bought Ars Technica, and AOL was buying Engadget, and Gizmodo got this. They didn't sell to anyone, but they got this huge investor infusion of cash. So all these different tech sites were starting to get bought up, and the second they would get bought up, their staff would increase. So their staffs almost overnight would go from 1 to 2 people to 15 to 20. And within, weeks, I realized very quickly, there's no way that I can compete as a writer with the writing output of 15 people. I'm one guy. There's just no way. There's not enough hours in a day. It doesn't mean I didn't try, but, very quickly, you just, my wheels are always turning on how I'm always watching out, like what's coming, what's around the corner, what do I need to watch out for, what I need to be prepared for, because I think that's what makes a successful business person. And that's always been my goal. My goal isn't to be a great website owner, a great YouTube person, like a great Twitter personality. My goal is to be a great business person. So it immediately occurred to me I need to switch things up. Otherwise, I'm going to become irrelevant very quickly. There's no way I can compete with all these other people. The amount of output that they're doing, and that's where video occurred to me. There was no YouTube at the time. There wasn't really anywhere. See, this is another thing that's going to date me. There wasn't really anywhere to record a video file and then put it for free.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't exist.
Right.
You would record a video file and host it somewhere and then pay for the storage and pay for the bandwidth used for people to download your video. That's where I started. So I said, video is going to be the thing. Video is going to be where people are going to go for their information, similar to how they do it now, which now was back then. If you want to hear about the news of the day, back then you would be more likely to watch the news on TV than to buy a newspaper, right? You're going to be more likely to watch the news than read the news. So it just made sense to me. I need to start doing video. The other reason that it made sense to me was because if I say The Verge, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Right.
If I say Engadget, I say Gizmodo, I say Wall Street Journal, I say New York Times, you know every single one of these names. But if I take a random name of a reporter at any of these outlets, unless they're like one of the top people at these outlets, if I just say the name of a random reporter, you'll probably be like, oh, who is that? I just give you, it's like I'm just saying a random name, right?
Right.
I needed people to know my name. I needed people, when they read my words or heard my opinion, to know who it was coming from. Not the Wall Street Journal said, but Andru Edwards said. Mm-hmm. This person said. And those things led me to video, because my personality could come through. You can see, my name, you hear my voice, and as you watch more of my content going forward, you begin to get a picture of what I like and what I don't like, and how that mixes with what you like and what you don't like. So if you love something that I hate, my videos are still relevant, because every time I talk about this thing that I hate, oh, well, I love that though. So when he's saying he doesn't like that, that's actually something that I would actually really enjoy, just for example. So I thought it was an opportunity to stay relevant. It was an opportunity to get my name out there rather than my brand, which was Gear Live. Get my name out, get people to know me, and make a better connection with people, both from my end to them through like building a community, but also from them to me, people getting to actually know me and get familiar with me over time.
It's funny listening to you talk about how you lacked the confidence when you were growing up. I have watched you year after year at CES, stand in front of a loaded CES floor, hosting a live stream for National Renter Car. That does not look like somebody who doesn't have confidence. Like, you can't do that if you don't have confidence. So you have definitely grown and matured, no doubt, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's actually one thing that I tell a lot of people who do, you've heard me say this. I don't know how many people in the chat or watching have heard me say this, but I always tell people, do not use the word YouTuber. You are limiting yourself right off the bat.
Oh, yeah.
And one thing that brands have told me many times, and many different brands, is when they decide to work with me, if I wasn't their first choice, they are nervous. And the reason they're nervous is because working with other YouTube creators, they are unable to be who they are in their YouTube videos when there's a big crew around them. So when there's a lighting person and 3 camera people and a director and a sound person, all of a sudden, since they're not used to it, because they're used to doing videos by themselves in their, in their home studio or their living room or wherever they might be, they lack the confidence to do it in front of a crowd. And so I always try to tell people, the YouTuber mentality is a limiting mentality. You're limiting your skills. You're limiting the type of voice you can do. And I mean voice as in like how far your voice can reach. You're limiting your income. You're limiting all these things because you're so focused on thinking how someone who wants to be successful on YouTube thinks versus thinking how someone who wants to be a successful, I don't know, I hate the word influencer, but
Me too.
it's more appropriate. Like a successful video influencer might be a successful business person who hosts videos. Let's call it that. Might be. So I always try to tell people develop skills. Get your your significant other or friends or family or whatever. Just have them in the room. Have them around you when you're doing this stuff because you want to. When someone makes the call, hey, we love your videos and we want you to be in our commercial. You want to be able to say yes, and you want to be able to confidently know that you can walk into that room and own that room rather than walking in and being like, oh, I didn't realize there's lighting people too. This is crazy. Who's behind me? Like I've heard from so many brands how they've tried this and it just doesn't work because people can't get their personality going because all of a sudden there's a crowd around.
It's so hilarious listening to you talk about YouTubers and how they can't flip the switch when it's money time.
Yeah.
As you know, we were all me, you, Jeff. We were at VidSummit 2018, and I remember, and Jeff knows where I'm going with this. I was in the lobby of that hotel, and I think, oh yeah, Daryl Eve was doing a live stream, and I think I had the camera or whatever, and people were daring me to do my Friday night. Do you remember this? People were daring me to do
I do remember this.
People were daring me to do my Friday Night Viper introduction in the lobby. I did it, Drew, and I practically shut the lobby down. Like it was crazy.
Like, but that's it. Like that's what it's all about.
Yeah, you gotta, like you said, you gotta be confident no matter what arena you're in. You just gotta know that when you're in the building, you're in the building. So
that's it.
I completely agree, man. That's what's up. Woo! Oh man. See, Drew, we should get together and talk more often, man. We should get together more often, bro. So you are like a mega entrepreneur. You're like on all the platforms and things like that. So one thing that I've heard you say repeatedly to people is don't limit yourself to one platform. But what my great question about that is, if you're just starting out, isn't it better to try to get good at one platform then spread, or are you of the mindset that you should still try to spread your wings everywhere, even though you might not have the confidence or the fan base to be everywhere yet?
So I do think if you're just you've never done anything and you're just starting out, like today is day one, start at one place. But I wouldn't start on YouTube would be the thing. I think that's the thing. Like everybody thinks YouTube is, a lot of my friends, YouTube is the be all end all. It's just not the case. In fact, here's another, I don't know if I told you this story before. I feel like sometimes I repeat myself and I'm telling stories that are boring people because I've already told them before. But there's a guy who came up to me at, I'm trying to think where it was. I think it was VidCon, the last VidCon. Came up to me, wanted to shake my hand. Never met this guy, or I thought I never met this guy, but I met him online apparently because he reached out to me in a DM, but I didn't know who he was. Mm-hmm. He said, "I want to thank you because I reached out last year to, I think he said like 10 different, people that he followed, 10 influencers, and you're the only one who DM'd me back. And I asked for advice, and the advice was, I have an opportunity to work with a certain brand. I forget which brand it was. It wasn't tech, and I just need advice because basically he needed to have, in order to enter, it was like a contest, but in order to enter, you needed to have a minimum of 1,000 subscribers, and he had like 800 or something like that. Mm-hmm. So he was asking for advice. How do I quickly grow my subscriber base? And I gave him like a couple of tips on what he could do, but he only had 2 weeks. His channel was, I think, like 3 years old at the time. So in 3 years, he had gotten 800 subscribers, and then he needed to get 200 more in 2 weeks.
Right.
Which, if you look at the math, this is very difficult. So, but he was able to get 92 in the following 2 weeks based on the advice that I gave him. But I didn't just give him advice on how to grow subscribers. What I told him was, I know this is unsolicited because you were just asking me how to grow subscribers. But I think you have a really good opportunity if you look at your content and look at every platform that's available to you. I think your content would be much more well served if you start a Musical.ly account. At the time, it was called Musical.ly. Today, it's called TikTok.
Right.
He started this account, and within a month, he had, I think it was over 700,000 people following him. Because his content was dancing. His content was all sorts of different types of dances and like tutorials. Not only did he get 700,000 people following him within a very short time frame, but then the next big video event, which is called Playlist Live, they contacted him and said, we want to give you space on our stage to do your dances on our stage, and with a sponsorship tied to it. Now today he's blown up over 1.5 million followers on TikTok. If he was on YouTube, he'd still be struggling trying to hit 1,500 to 2,000 people. So to me, if I was starting today, I would start on TikTok instantly. I would double, triple down on TikTok, get my content and get known there, and then move over to something like YouTube, to bring over some of my audience and reach a new one. But you can't just jump in. You know, a lot of people on YouTube, they just jump in with, oh, I watch YouTube all the time. I like a lot of people that I watch on YouTube. I'm going to do this too. I'm just going to do it. There's no business plan. There's no like research. There's a difference between I want to make videos, which is totally fine. If you just want to make videos for fun, you like it, you want to emulate others, or you have original ideas, there's nothing wrong with that. You go anywhere you want if that's all your goal is. But if your goal is to make money and turn it into a business, that's totally different. You would not start any other business without a plan, no matter what it is. But I don't know why people think making videos is just, I don't need a plan. I just make videos, I talk to the camera, I post it, I come up with a thumbnail and some tags, and I'm good. And I'm building I'm a business owner now. It leads down to, you know, a really hard road, not an impossible road, but a hard road. So I would say, look at the landscape. If you're starting today, you're starting tomorrow, you're starting next Monday, look at the landscape. What kind of content are you making? Number one, who is the ideal viewer of that content? Identify it, write it down. How old are they? Male or female or both? Income level, all that. Who is the ideal person to watch your content? And then when you have that, where is that ideal person? Where are they spending their time? Are they spending their time on YouTube? Are they spending their time on TikTok? Are they spending their time on Pinterest? Is it Facebook? This is how you kind of have to start planning. And yeah, I would start with one, like you said, and like you asked about. I would start with one, but within half of a year, you should be spreading your content everywhere. And it's not hard to do that, by the way. Like I make a video, I put it on YouTube, and then I also export the exact same video in 1080p instead of 4K, the exact same file, and that goes on IGTV. And I export them at the same time. So when I'm done with the video in Final Cut, I say, okay, export 4K, start, export 1080p, start. And they just go back to back. It takes no extra time on my end, maybe 3 seconds to specify a second export. And then once the second one's done, that goes on IGTV, which then creates an Instagram feed teaser up to 1 minute long. So with 3 seconds of extra work, I'm now seen in 3 times as many places. So, you know, a lot of people who ask me, that's the next question they always have. Well, it's a lot of work. Like, how are you everywhere? Not a lot of work. You just export an extra file and then you upload the extra file. That's not a lot of work. That's seconds. It's not even a minute. It's seconds more of work in order to be in front of how many more people? So,
Battery Power, thank you for the super chat, sir. Appreciate you as always. You know, it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that because I'm pretty sure I've heard you say before that when you are posting to a platform, you want to post content native to that platform, but you just said you repurpose work. Or did I
native? What native means is, okay, here's what native means. Native does not mean I make a different video for a different platform. What native means is I don't go on Instagram and say, hey, swipe up to head over to YouTube. That's not native. Native means I upload the file to Instagram. You do not have to leave. That's what native means. Native means if you're on Instagram and you want to see my content, you don't have to go elsewhere. Because think about it. When you're on your phone and you tap on Instagram, if you wanted to be on YouTube, you would have tapped on YouTube. So if you tap on Instagram, that's where you want to be. So I'm going to serve you where you choose to be. I don't go on Facebook and say, hey, here's a link to my latest video on YouTube. Come on over, hit the like. Like, no, the video's there for you on Facebook because that's where you want to be. I'm not going to disrespect you and your experience by trying to get you to leave the comfort of where you want to be in order to benefit me. Instead, what I'm going to do is give you my content where you want to be. So if you want to be on Instagram, there it is. If you want to be on YouTube, obviously there it is. You want to be on Twitter, there obviously you're not going to upload a 10-minute video on Twitter. You can't do that. So what can you do? Like and that's where you start thinking of different ways of giving native content. But one thing that I see a lot of people also doing, which it just baffles me, they'll release a video on YouTube, they'll go to Twitter, and they'll post a link. Here's a link to my video. Totally fine so far. But then someone will ask them, one of their followers, someone who takes the time to follow you and read your content, will ask them a question that they may have addressed in the video. And the answer will be, oh, that's in the video, go watch. And it's like, what if they don't have the time to watch the video? What if they're in a place where they can't listen to content right now? They're asking you as your follower for like a piece of advice or what you think about something, and all you're concerned with is them giving you a view. Why not just answer the question? Not, oh, go, it's in the video, go watch. How are you here to serve your audience, or are you here for your audience to serve you? So that's another example of native content. You can't post your full video to Twitter, but you can serve your audience there and treat them, with respect and with, the kindness that you would if a friend of yours or a family member of yours asked you a question, that same question. You wouldn't say, no, mom, go watch my video. And the answer, like you just answer them. So that's what I mean by native, is give people, like, respect their time and give them the content where they choose to be. You will develop more loyal followers that way. And bonus, like, I think the reason people want people to click over to YouTube is because they want that view. They want all the views they can get onto that video, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why do they want the views? My assumption is, if you really want the views, my assumption is that it's because you're trying to make money. But the real way to make money is to have audiences on multiple platforms. And let me explain that for a second, because a lot of people don't get it. They will say to me, why are you putting your content on Facebook when you can't monetize it? Why are you putting your content on IGTV? There's no way to monetize it. You monetize it by, when you're talking to brands, you say, if you want my video on IGTV or on Facebook, here's the fee. Like, that's how you monetize it. You don't monetize it because there's no checkbox to click that says monetize, all of a sudden you can't do it. You just have to be, again, a proactive business person, and that will allow you to monetize your content. I've had plenty of people come to me and say, hey, we're doing a campaign, Instagram only. What's your fee? Here's my fee. Now, if you have no content on Instagram, what's your fee going to be? What's your fee going to look like? If all your Instagram posts are just click on over to YouTube and check out my content, what's your fee for Instagram going to be? 0.
Right. Man, this is why I love talking to you, because you always drop this fire, man. It's solid advice. Love talking to you, dude. Man, that's what I'm talking about. It's so I had a train of thought and I just lost it. Damn it. But yeah, you bring up a good point. I mean, it's interesting, like you said, if you're posting on Twitter and somebody has a question for you on Twitter, yeah, I don't know if it would be prudent to direct them to a video when you could just answer the question right there on Twitter. I have people that ask me questions on Twitter all the time, and I just tell them the best answer right then and there. I mean, why would I
That's
guide them
it.
to a video? I mean, I don't know.
Right.
Just seems a little crazy to me. Renee Ritchie, thank you, sir. Can't Andrew adopt me and John so I can be brothers?
Let's get the paperwork started.
Oh, I love Renee. Renee is great. Renee is great. So, while I'm trying to figure out what I was going to ask you, let's ask you about your podcast. So you have a podcast called Gear Live, and
Geared Up.
Geared Up.
Geared Up
Okay,
is the
Geared Up. Okay.
podcast.
Oh no, it's Geared Up on Gear Live, right? I think it's that. You got Gear Live in there
The
somewhere.
website is Gear Live.
Okay.
The podcast is Geared Up.
Okay, so I remember when you used to live stream your podcast on YouTube, but now you don't do that anymore for whatever reason. But you were co-hosting with Todd, and then you were co-hosting with the lady. I don't remember what her name was. And now you got John Rettinger. How did you end up getting Rettinger? Because I mean, John Rettinger's a pretty busy dude usually.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody that I've co-hosted with has been friends of mine, right? So like Todd Bishop was the first one. He may be one of the busiest of all because he's one of the co-owners of GeekWire, one of the biggest tech news websites out there for corporate tech news. So this is earlier. Remember earlier I said I wanted to specify what I meant by tech, and I said consumer electronics because tech is so many different things. GeekWire doesn't cover consumer electronics. They cover like business tech. So when Amazon or Microsoft do something, they're breaking those stories. So, and that's kind of what happened. He got too busy. He started a new podcast with Steve Ballmer, and he had like several podcasts going. And I was like, let me just take it. I'm just going to do. I'll take it and keep it going. And then John, I was just like, so I did the podcast solo for maybe 2 months or so. And it just occurred to me, I didn't realize before I started doing that, how different it was to do a podcast with someone else versus just by yourself, and how you kind of have to keep things going on your own in a different way. It's just a different dynamic. And so I was like, I like it better the other way. So I just, me and John have been friends, geez, probably for 10, 12 years or something now. Since he started, we've been friends, and so I just reached out to him. Was like, "Hey, what do you think? You want to do this?" And he was like, he actually said he was literally thinking of starting a podcast when I emailed him because he had gotten his schedule to where he had Soul Techno Buffalo, and his shooting schedule was such that he had it down to where he had 2 days free. Based on his new schedule. And so with those 2 days, he wanted to start some other new, different non-video project. And so that was it. He was all in, and the rest is history.
Yeah, I mean, I've listened to a little bit of it. Pretty good podcast. You guys have pretty good chemistry. I mean, obviously you've been friends for over a decade. So
yeah,
man. I mean, like you are fascinating, man, because you are in there. You are getting it done. I call you the hardest working man in tech because you're constantly working. You are constantly on the go. You're constantly traveling. No, actually, that brings up a different question. Given the current state of affairs and things like that, and Andrew actually having to stay at home for a little while, how has it been with your not being able to travel? I know, right?
Yeah, it's. I mean, number one, I traveled a lot, but so did other people. So all these events I would go to, usually you see pretty much the same people there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's funny that I got this this reputation that I'm traveling all the time, but when I go to these places, everybody else is there too. So maybe not the exact same people every time. Maybe I go to more events than others, but everybody's also traveling around too. But it has been strange because number one, even though I travel a lot, that's part of the business, but I never liked traveling. I actually don't know. Many people do like traveling. When I say traveling, I mean the process of traveling. the waking up early, driving an hour to get to the airport or Ubering to the airport, waiting in lines at the airport, waiting for the plane, waiting to take off, waiting to get off, waiting for the, all the waiting is just it's like traveling is such a waste of time. Especially when there's all these back-to-back events. One time I went from, so I live in Seattle. So I went from Seattle to New York for an event. But then I had something I had to be back in Seattle for. So I flew back to Seattle and then back to New York the same day that I flew back to Seattle.
Ooh.
To finish the other event and then back home. Like it was, sometimes these things get absurd. Or, I have a lot of these multi-leg, start in Seattle, go to New York, go to LA, go back home to Seattle, then back to San Francisco, then back home. So I like being able to have these relationships where companies invite me out to see things early and get hands-on time and interview time. That's awesome. I just wish there was a way to transport from city to city rather than go through, all the rigmarole of traveling. So without all that, it's been nice, like just hanging out at home, getting work done here, not feeling like I'm constantly behind. Because that's another thing. Like you travel, you shoot all your stuff, you fly home, you're gonna edit, but now you have to travel somewhere else. So okay, I'll edit that later, or I'll bring it with me and try to edit it. But I'm also doing something else now. Now I'm shooting more stuff at a new place back home. Now I'm 2 videos behind. So this has been kind of a welcome. not that this is a good situation to be in, or that I'm thankful that the world has a pandemic going on. But all things considered, being just stuck at home has been a nice change of pace for me. And it's also interesting because other people I talk to who don't travel as much, they're like, man, I don't go anywhere and I'm just tired all the time. Is anybody else tired all the time? And for me, I'm like, I'm the complete opposite. Like I'm always on the go. So for me, I'm resting right now. This is great.
No doubt. LeBaron Burden, thank you for the $20, sir. Andrew, looks like
hey, LeBaron.
He got some popcorn for you, Andrew. You might want to get up on that, man.
Yes. Oh, he sent me that DM. That's right. I got to get back to
him. No doubt. Whoo! Oh man.
By the way, since we had Renee Ritchie in the chat, can I have to give him a shout out because he's another person who, number one, has not just dedicated himself to a single platform before or now. Before, when he was employed as a journalist and analyst, multiple areas, website, podcast, video. And then when he went solo, he didn't just say, you know what, I'm going to go solo and I'm just going to do video content. No, day one, solo podcast, solo website, solo video. This is the proper way to build a sustainable business. He's serving people in different ways, giving them their preferred method of ingesting content.
I can definitely vouch for my man Renee. He is legit. Like you say, he's not only everywhere, but I think he's building his own platform with Nebula and things like that. So yeah, Renee is definitely getting it done. But man, it's like I said, it's so cool to like be able to talk to you, but because I always talk about how you are the hardest working man in tech, and I see you constantly working, and I'm like, man, I'm trying to like constantly work myself. I mean, this is my 5th podcast this week alone, so it's just I just feel like I know I'm not in a place to like I get a big following and do all brand deals and things like that, but I kind of subscribe to the Gary Vee model. If I do all the work, if I do all the hard work, well, Gary Vee says if you do all the work up front, the money, the brand deals, all that stuff will come. You shouldn't be trying to like get people to charge people for your work, not right off the bat or anything like that, because you need to show value. So I'm trying to show all the value I can show by doing these live streams, making a video, doing a podcast, and things like that. And I feel like if I just keep doing what I'm doing, at some point, whatever happens is going to happen, and that's how I feel. Do you feel like similarly, or do you feel a different way about how somebody should build their brand and things like that?
I think there is what do you call it? I would veer off a little bit from that. I do think that you should work hard. I do think that the harder you work, the more likely things are going to happen for you. But what I don't like to do is leave things to just chance. So like the more you do, you're building up more of a possibility for positive things to happen. But it goes back to what I said a little while ago about having a plan. I'd rather work hard and build things, but also know, okay, when I don't know, I'm trying to think of like an example, but I want to fast track things as much as I can. So instead of just building something and eventually someone's going to see it and they'll notice me and then they'll, reach out and work with me. I want to build things and then put it in front of the right eyes. So again, going back to who do I want to see this? Who's my ideal viewer? What does that person look like? What do they like? Like that's why I always talk about multi-platform approaches and strategies. That's number one. But also just how do I get this to be seen or heard or read by the people that I think need to see, hear, or read it? Not just I've done it and I'm putting in the hard work and hopefully they come across it at some point. I think that's two different things, and maybe both of those work, but I think having a plan is more appropriate because you want to be in charge and in control of your own destiny versus just hoping that someone else eventually finds out or happens across it.
No, that definitely makes sense. I mean, anybody who wants to go into like making a business wants to work for themselves. You don't want to you don't want to
Yes,
you don't want to have your fate be determined by anybody else. I mean, that's why a lot of people get out of the employment game and start their own business because they want to be their own
yes,
boss. They want to charter their own path, and they don't want anybody to affect that but them. I mean, I guess
I agree.
the perfect situation is you being the master of your own destiny. Not having to report to anybody. Whatever you get out, I mean, whatever you put in and what you get out, more or less. So that's the perfect storm.
I agree with that. And I think a lot of people who, going back to the whole YouTuber term that I don't like, a lot of people that consider themselves YouTubers make YouTube their boss. When you just said a minute ago, you want to run your own company, you don't want to have to answer to anybody. I feel like that's me. I don't have to answer to anybody. But I feel like a lot of people feel like they have to answer to YouTube. What does YouTube want? What do I need to give them in order to get this result? How do I change this? Do I need to put like there's all sorts of things that people do to where they're handcuffed and shackled by an algorithm that's outside of their control. So for me, I don't care about I don't care. I don't care about the algorithm. I care about who I connected with, who's watching, and how can I serve them better, whether there's an algorithm or not. So it's very freeing. I don't care any changes YouTube makes, any apocalypse, I don't care. I don't care about it. I just care about reaching the people who want to watch my content. And if you provide good content and put it like how can you be your own algorithm? How can you get your content in front of somebody? Let's just think, like, if a TV station that wasn't one of the major ones that everybody watches, so not NBC, but a TV station on cable said, hey, Viper, you know what? We're going to give you an hour every week at no cost to put whatever you want on TV. We're not going to give you the advertising, but we're going to give you the free airtime, 1 hour every single week. Would you say yes or no? And if you said yes, they're not giving you advertising, they're not advertising your show. Would you figure out a way to get people to tune in? Or would you say, you know what, I'm not taking this because I need you to figure out how to get it in front of people. It's your job, TV station, to get people to watch my show. I don't think of it that way. I think of it more as it's my job to get people to watch my content or listen to my content. And actually, that's actually a better example. You have a podcast. We're on a podcast right now. This is Viper's podcast. There's no algorithm for podcasts, right? You
Nope.
publish a podcast and no one's going to listen to it unless you get it in front of them. Treat your videos that way. It's your job to get people to know about your podcast and to get them to listen to it. That's how I treat my video content. Now, the algorithm may help in the background. Great. I'm not turning down that help, but I'm also not saying that that help is required, that it's someone else's job, and that it's essential to what I do. It's my duty as the business owner to make sure that my content performs both in views and in revenue.
I like that. I think Matt Diavello said something one time about being so good that you're thought about being so good that the algorithm doesn't matter. I forget what the exact quote was.
Yes.
But yeah,
I would agree with that. Yeah.
He said, be so good that the algorithm doesn't matter. So
that's it.
Absolutely. You just gotta do your thing, go out there and just make people want to watch you more or less, or get people to sing your praises and bring in more people and do what you gotta do.
Yeah, word of mouth. Word of mouth. Exactly. Word of mouth has always been the best form of advertising.
Absolutely. So I gotta ask you this because you are a successful creator, influencer, whatever the hell you want to call yourself. You work with a whole bunch of brands. You score major brand deals. I am just getting into this. So, I mean, I've had a little bit of a successful brand, but nothing on your level. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on a person starting. Let's not say just a person starting out. Just say a person that's been doing it for like maybe a year or two, and their numbers aren't up there yet, but they're trying to work with these brands. What would your advice be to an up-and-coming creator trying to work with these brands who feel like they can't work with the brands because they don't have the numbers and things like that? Because we both know that's not true. I've been around. I've had enough success to know that that's not true. But you are the master. So what would you tell somebody that wants to work with brands, but they feel like they don't have the numbers?
It's going to go back to knowing your business. So for me, for example, I've never been about numbers as it pertains to like subscribers or sometimes even views. So like if you look at my channel, which has been around for, I don't know, over 10 years for sure, I have probably just under 220,000 subscribers. But if you think about that over 10 years, I would say that's pretty low, but I don't care. I care about what results can I get. And so this goes back to business. Okay. So I'm not in it for vanity metrics. I'm not in it for impressive view counts or impressive subscriber numbers. If you look at when I talk about a product, if that product is on Amazon and I put it like a link, and I use Amazon as the example because I can go in and see my own analytics. If someone watches my video and clicks on that link, better than 1 out of 5 people, 28%. So actually better than 1 out of 4 people, 28% of people will buy it. So that means I have cultivated an audience who trusts what I have to say. And if I think something is good and recommend it, more than 1 out of 4 of them will buy it. I can take that information to any brand and put that in front of them and say, it's not about the numbers. It's not about, whatever. If I like something and you make something that I actually enjoy, people that watch my content will buy it. And I've heard, I'm not going to name any names, but there are tech creators out there in the same niche who have charged brands 10 times what I've charged brands and have delivered 10 times less sales than my video did with 50 times less views. So it's not about, everything. Like, I don't know how to get this point across to like get people to change their mindset, because I feel like I say it so much. You can't go to a brand, which is a business, and come to them with vanity metrics about YouTube and expect successful negotiation. That's not what it's about. If I give you $1 and I'm a company, at the very bare minimum, for that dollar I gave you, you need to make me $1.01. At a bare minimum, you need to make me $1.01. So I'm not losing money. I'm at least breaking even. So that's the conversation. So no matter who you are, no matter how big you are or small, whatever you might be, what kind of results can you deliver? And that's how you approach these negotiations. If you know, for example, as Viper, if you know that anytime I link to Amazon, I look at my Amazon conversion rate, and my conversion rate is between 3 to 5%, just for example. Like, now you're starting to talk business. So, okay, conversion rate is 3 to 5%. Your average views is X. 3 to 5% of that, based on the amount that we sell this product for, equals, like, that is how you go in. It's not about how many people watch my content. I could have 3 million people watch a video and 0 buy the product. Then what's the point? Or I can have 30,000 people, which is closer to like my video numbers. So let's say 30,000 people watch me talk about the iPad Pro Magic Keyboard, and 28% of those people click and buy it. Sorry, 28% of the people who click the link buy it. So that's way more impressive. So that's how I approach this stuff, and that's how you know what to charge. By the way, too, it's like you can't just pick a random number. Here's what I'm going. I just charge this. I just charge $5,000. I just came up with it because it sounds good. What's that number based on? I can base my numbers on, when I talk about phones, here's the results I get. But when I talk about cameras, this is what I get. And when I talk about, computers or laptops, this is the result I get. So I know exactly what my numbers look like. And if you're a business person, successful business people, they know their numbers. And if they don't know their numbers, they have someone on staff who knows the numbers, and they go and ask, what are the numbers? That is how you start negotiating with major corporations like Samsung, or any of them, Verizon, T-Mobile. Like, these are companies. Like, these aren't just friends just because someone emails you or you follow each other on Twitter. It's just like a friendly conversation. When it's time to get down to business, it's time to get down to business. Like LeBaron in the chat, I'm going to make a fairly, I feel, is a safe assumption that he is very familiar with the numbers that his business generates. He is very familiar with when he makes, whether it's a savory flavor versus a sweet flavor, or a time of year or something seasonal, that he knows based on numbers how it performed last time, how it's going to do in the future, and how he can tweak things. He's not just randomly guessing everything, which, a lot of people in this job, a lot of people seem to just do a lot of guessing and a lot of hoping and a lot of, I'm just going to try this, versus data-backed decisions. Go with data.
Data don't lie.
That's right.
Data don't lie. I mean, it's all logical. I mean, none of what you said is false. I mean, it's the natural basis for how life works in general, right? If you're going to make a decision, if you're going to do something in life, chances are you have data to support whatever decisions you're going to make. So, I mean, hopefully. Hopefully, right? Hopefully, that's the general premise of business. If you want something, or you want to produce a desired result, then you need data so you can make the best business decision possible. Or if you don't have the data, you need to figure out a way to compile that data so you can go and take that data to where it needs to go and things like that. So,
yes,
you know what? Talking to you for the last hour, so it's easy to see why you are in the position that you are, because you seem like you're analytical. You have a good business acumen. You know what to do. You understand how to get the desired results. And I think, myself included, a lot of us need to learn how to better use data and businesses to get the desired results, because that's the way to go.
Yeah, and I should also say, like, there's nothing special about me that, no one taught me anything. Like, I don't have a business degree, or everything for me was trial and error and research. So there's nothing that I do that other people can't do. There's no skill that I went to an expensive school to learn that no one else can access. Like, it's just, to me, what makes sense. And what makes sense is I need to be as educated as possible about how my business works and can be successful. And that's it. I need, that is like, that's my spare time. A lot of times is, if I have spare time, I might want to fire up the Xbox, but usually I'll instead, just start doing research about stuff. So it's always, I want to learn how to be a better businessman within what I do, which is produce consumer electronics videos. The word YouTube does not appear in that statement at all, or Facebook or Instagram or any of that. This is what I do for a business, and those are my methods of getting it out to the world. So I think people really have to take a step back and spend, even if you spent 30 minutes a day figuring out your numbers. For example, you want to work with brands, what are your numbers? Go through all the videos that you've done. Look at, and this is assuming you've linked to Amazon before, but go through, look at your analytics, look at your click-through rates, look at when you talk about, like, you've kind of migrated to a more Apple approach, which is technically could be easier going forward for working with brands, because your brands become not Apple themselves, because they don't do, very rarely do they do sponsored things, but
Right.
all the brands that do the cottage industry around Apple,
Yep.
so whether it's cases or accessories and all that, that's easier. But you can still see, okay, when I talk about cases and I link out to cases, this is what the numbers look like. So if for example, on average, that if you put out a video about a case or cases or what have you, and that video gets, I'm just using random numbers here, let's say it gets 2,000 views, and you get, from those 2,000 views, you get 100 clicks and you get 20 sales. If that's your average, then okay, I want to work with this brand. I know typically I can get 20 sales. So would it make sense to charge $5,000 to sell 20 phone cases? Probably not. But maybe it may be more advantageous for you to start with something smaller, say $500, plus the affiliate link, so you can make residual income,
right,
and start from there. So as you grow, you know what I mean? So now it becomes fair. It's fair to you and it's fair to the brand. And as soon as a brand feels like you're fair to them and you haven't taken advantage of them, and they feel like the money they paid you was well spent, they will come back several times. They will just come back. You will be on their list. But when a brand feels like they paid you and didn't get what their money's worth, you are off the list. See what I'm saying?
yep,
I'd rather take a little less, knowing that next time, three more times this year, they're going to call me, versus getting a little more, but they're never calling me again. So, but take some time, figure out those types of numbers. If you can figure out those types of numbers, then you go to the brands with data. Here's what it looks like when I link out to products like yours, and here's what I'm thinking we should do. So that is informed information versus just, hey, want to work together? Like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, sure. What are we gonna do? I don't know. I just want to work with you guys. It's just like, that's what I see that one a lot. So, education and research is your friend.
absolutely. All right, I got a tougher question for me. I gotta
Go
know.
for it.
How did you end up getting invited to Apple events?
So let me think. So Apple has invited me to several events, but until recently, I haven't been like just on the list by default. Like
Right.
just, you know what I mean? So I've been invited to WWDC a few times. There was actually 2 events they did that I had to turn down. And actually, this is another thing. I don't know. This is my own personal advice, nothing to do with successful business or not. But so I'm also a father, so I have a kid. He's 16 now. And Apple had 2 major events that coincided with one was his graduation and one was his birthday.
Okay.
And I can't make work more important than family. So there are times where I've actually had to painfully turn down invites, even from Apple. But this most recent round was they reached out to me and they said, you know, we are looking we're looking to add more journalists to our, I don't know what you call it, to the group of people that they work with, right?
Right.
And journalists who do video. Okay. Well, that's me for sure. And I sat down with them. So they actually invited me to Apple Park. And when they invited me to Apple Park, I thought it was going to be like a low key event. So not an event, but like a briefing.
Right.
Like they're inviting people for briefings because they don't tell you why they're inviting you down. But I go down there and I go in, and it's just me. So I go and they're like, okay, yeah, walk over to this section of the building. So I'm like walking around Apple Park by myself outside to get to the entrance. And I get to the entrance, and the person who invited me met me there, and they're like, yeah, we're just gonna have like a conversation with the who was it? This wasn't under NDA, so I'm not. They specifically told me it wasn't under NDA. So, but I met with PR people from iPad, iPhone, iOS. I think there might have been a Mac person there too. I forget. But basically, they brought me in. We sat down. They gave me a tour of all of Apple Park. Then we sat down for our meeting, and I said the question I asked them was, when you work with people, what do you look for? Just what do you look for? Like I want to make sure. Like I know you guys are you have me here because you're kind of like vetting me, but I want to know like what you look for because I want to know that I'm going to make the content I want to make. I'm not going to make the content that Apple wants me to make unless
Right.
it just so happens that there's synergy there that you end up liking it. And what I loved was their answer, which was, we just want fairness. That's it. If you say something good or bad about one of our products or services or whatever, we just want to be fair. If it's fair, cool. And to me, that was enough because that all they want is fair reporting. So the video I've released today, it talks about it's a video that's only about the things about the new iPad Pro Magic Keyboard that I wish were better. So people might see that as a negative video. Oh, Apple sent you this and you did a video negative? No, I'm talking about this. I legitimately think these things need to be improved to make a better product for the end user. Apple doesn't have a problem with that. And I sent them, hey, here's what I'm doing this video. Here's what I'm covering. And do you have any responses to any of these things that I think need to be addressed in this product? That gave them the opportunity to say, you know what? Well, the reason that we do this because of this, or that's called fairness. Now, there's a difference between that and someone who sees Apple announce AirPods on stage and instantly goes to Twitter and says, look at Apple announcing these. This is stupid. This is so expensive. No one's going to wear these. They're going to get lost. They look ugly. This is dumb. This is one of Apple's dumbest ideas that they've ever like. And then AirPods become the most successful headphone in the history of the planet and maybe universe. So that's a hot take. It's unfair. It's unresearched. There's nothing good. Now, it may be good for people to like respond to you on Twitter and maybe want to watch your video because you're hating on something, but that's not what a company would consider a fair approach. So I think, and it was also, they said the word journalist. We want to bring in more journalists who do video. So do you take yourself seriously enough that you are doing fair journalism? Is your point to do research, figure something out, and report it to the people who are consuming your content to help them, positively or negatively? Buy this product or don't buy this product. Are you helping them in a fair manner? And that always takes me back. I don't know if he's still here. I think he is. Rene Ritchie. This is a man who I think does a great job at kind of distilling things down for the average person who watches his content, and who will tell them, this is good, this is bad. I like this, I don't like that. I wish Apple would do this. I like that they do that. If you pay attention to his content, it's not all, I love everything Apple does. It's not it. It's fair, it's honest, it's balanced. So, but it's also not a hot take. Nothing Rene does is just, I heard this and instantly this comes out of my mouth.
No.
And like that kind of content is not going to do well for these big companies that you want to start having relationships with. And I'm not talking about sponsorship relationships with, just companies who will give you access, who will give you devices early, who will give you access for interviews and things like that. They just want fairness. And so, and again, I go back to take the word YouTube out of what you do. What is your content really? Like, categorize your content. Is it journalism? Is it helpful? Is it fair? That's the kind of answer you need to figure out for yourself. And it doesn't have to be like, you can be very successful without being, that kind of content creator. You can be a hater and do really well. You know what I mean? I'm serious. Like, you can be someone who a company wouldn't want to work with because all you do is leak everything that they're about to do, right? Which they might consider unfair. They might consider that unfair. Doesn't mean you do, but they might consider that unfair. You can still do well without having these relationships. But if you want the relationships, if you want them, then you need to act and carry yourself a certain way. They need to, the reason they want fairness is because they need to feel like they trust you. They trust you with the message, and they trust you that even if you don't agree with the message and don't like the product, you're still going to be fair about it. And one way to be fair, by the way, just a tip, if I have a product that I don't like, I can figure out who would like the product. So I can say in a video, you know what, this product isn't for me because of X, Y, and Z. However, if you are this other type of person, then this really is the product for you. It may not be for me, but it will be for you. That's fair. Not, I don't like it, therefore it sucks. Like the craziest thing people say, like iPhone or Android sucks. iPhones suck, Android suck. These are the two biggest operating systems. These are the two, like, neither of these can suck by definition. If you look at what's in people's hands around the world, neither of these can suck. So if you think either one of these suck, then you are not someone who I would say is a fair and balanced person.
It's funny that you say that because I just put out my video review, I think it was the day before yesterday, about the iPhone SE2. And I said the exact things that you were just saying. I told people up front, this phone is not for me, but for 90% of the population, this is what you want. This is what you need. It's a little too small for me. It doesn't have a big enough battery for me. But if you're coming from an iPhone 6, 7, or 8, or you're somebody that likes this smaller form factor, then this is definitely the device for you. And like you said, that's fair. Even though this is not the phone for me, I know that there's a large amount of the population that will like and enjoy using this device. So definitely, absolutely.
That's it. Like, that serves the audience rather than serves you.
You know, it's funny. Like when I first started doing this stuff 3 years ago, I think I was kind of more hot headed than I am now. But I think I come to the realization, when you start off, you're trying to like be cool and things like that, but then you grow and then you figure stuff out and then you realize that there's a different way to do this. So I think over the last year and a half or so, I think I've learned there's a different, more positive, better way to do this. I'm learning, man. I'm learning. I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay.
Good.
I'm doing all right. Andru Edwards, man, I appreciate the time. I'm not going to hold you up any longer. Thank you so much for sitting down with me finally.
For sure. Sorry it
Man.
took so long.
No problem, man. Before we get out of here, let the people know where they can find you. Everywhere, according to him.
If you want to, I am everywhere. The one challenge, unless you know me, is that my first name is spelled Andru. So if you just heard my name and you're like typing in the typical spelling of Andru, you're not going to find me. So Andru, Andru Edwards, at Andru on Instagram, Andru Edwards on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. I'm not hard to find.
He's not hard to find. Curious, since you are in tap with all things, every platform, what is your biggest platform? Where is your biggest presence?
My biggest one, I would say the biggest one is YouTube. Fastest growing Instagram by far. But yeah, I would say most people consume my content on YouTube. Although time-wise, people spend the most time with my content in the podcast. Our podcasts are generally between 40 minutes and an hour long. And according to our analytics, the average person listens to 89% of that. So they're spending, my YouTube videos are maybe 5-10 minutes long versus someone who actually spends, a good 30 to 40 minutes with me. So again, another reason to be multi-platform.
I can definitely attest to the podcast life. I just found out that my podcast has been listened to over 10,000 times. I'm like, okay,
good there you
stuff.
Go.
What's up? Thank you guys for watching the live stream on YouTube. For those of y'all that super chatted or brought me a coffee or any of that stuff, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for everything that you do. As I tell you guys, none of it is required, but it does help me out greatly. So I appreciate you. For those of y'all listening on audio only, thank you for listening this week. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me and Andru. If you want to support the podcast, there will be links in the show notes for you to do that. Also, if you happen to be listening to this on Apple Podcasts, could you please take a moment to leave a rate or review on Apple Podcasts? This helps more people discover the podcast, help more listeners, help us gain more listeners, blah, blah, blah. If I could talk correctly, that'd be great. But anyway, thank you again to my man, Andru. Thank you to everybody in the live stream. We out of here. But until the next time, people, this your boy Viper, the man about tech. You know where to find me. So come back for more.